Okay, we're recording. Thank you, George and Addy, for coming onto the channel, and you had this vacation in DC that I hear. So how was it in DC?
Well, Addy and I were both walking down Independence Avenue with your sponsor in Georgia. And we saw all these guys with sleeve tats, the prison type sleeve tats, and all the way up to the neck, tats, and every kind of piercing you could have. And, the first thing I thought of, and they were coming across the avenue and then all putting on orange hats that were kind of close to MAGA red hats, these orange hats. And Addy, we were all looking at it, and they were on this little grassy knoll, and they were getting ready to look like they were going to charge somewhere. And I just thought to myself, these guys don't look anything like MAGA people. They look like the Antifa or Occupy type people, or World Climate Change type people, or these are the guys who probably smashed all the windows in Santa Monica. They're gate smashers and they're window smashers. What are they doing here? That's what I kept thinking of. And so I was keeping my eye on them. I said, oh my God, false flag, here we go, orange hats. And Addy and I were standing right in the middle of it, and they marched right by us. And Sure enough, they knocked down the gates.
Yeah, it was, I think, pretty obvious false flag operation, at least for people who are looking for it. And it seemed to happen on both sides. I actually saw a video of not only on the south side, which is the event that George is referring to, but on the north side as well. They just basically let the gates, they let people in more or less. And it actually, just before I lose this train of thought, made me think of the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting. I'm skipping forward to the woman getting shot with apparent couple more dead, I guess 4 dead total. And that's, I've been hearing this excuse for why Rittenhouse didn't get shot was because the police got ordered to stand down. And to me, it just makes it look and it solidifies the theory that it was an operation, the whole Rittenhouse thing, because they didn't shoot him. Yet they shoot this woman who, as far as I know, was unarmed. And moreover, I think that there was at least one door, maybe 2 doors, like a double door in between the shooter and the woman. So it seemed to me very much like a baited situation where they try to bait the Trump supporters, the naive and emotionally charged ones, get baited by the provocateurs, and then that sets off the trap. And the woman died. Ashley Babbitt was her name. So it made me think of that. But I just wanted to say too that the majority of the day was actually very enjoyable, and we got to meet up with a lot of great people. A lot of supporters of George and myself, and people who have just been following what's going on. And Ann Vandersteel as well, which was really great to meet Ann Vandersteel, and then my sponsor in Georgia additionally. So it was really a lot of camaraderie that was going on. And, like 11/12 of the day, well, maybe more like 7/8 or 3/4 was fantastic, But it was really from like 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon that stuff really got pretty crazy. But they, obviously the MSM, they spun this as the whole day was just, nonstop chaos, which is just not true. Anybody who was there knows it too. And it's funny too, because like I've been getting texts, or have gotten texts from people I know checking on me and see if I'm okay. And it's like, well, I was at a BLM protest in New York, and you guys didn't send me any text, and that was far more unsafe than what happened yesterday. And that was a very small group, and yesterday was probably hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And I just didn't feel that same danger. Now, that being said, there was, the barricade and the whole storming of the Capitol that happened as well. So it's not like it was completely free of danger, but it was a lot more congenial overall. The people at, I think, MAGA events, that the ones that I've been to, have been far more congenial and amicable than anybody who is associated with BLM, or certainly Antifa, in my experience. So I think it's important to just get the public intelligence out that this was a very positive group synergy that had been going on until this false flag event.
So could you hear the speech from Trump early in the day?
No, we were at the other end of the mall. At that end, on the ellipse end, Trump had a big tower, speaker tower, and a big screen TV and so forth. But that's, you know, about a mile away. And we were covering the Capitol because we said this is where the action's going to be. We met Ann Vandersteel up there because they said, well, if there is going to be a false flag, it's going to be here on Nancy Pelosi's ground, not on Trump's ground, or somewhere in between there on the mall, Pennsylvania Avenue or Constitution Avenue, which is Bowser's ground as the DC police. So it's either going to be Capitol Police or DC Police, wherever the false flag is going to be. And we were right being there at the Capitol.
My observation, you know, this is, you know, I'm in New York, I was studying and I, you know, was getting notifications. Oh, there was a shooting. There was someone stormed the building, you know, there's a lockdown, someone's dead, so, but it started around, I think the notifications were like 2:08 from CNBC. And so it was kind of chaotic. And always when you're away from something, you know, it's the way that mainstream media portrays it as it's sensational. You know, they blow it out of proportion. Many things have been blown out of proportion that have happened in New York that were way more, you know, lower key. Now there are other things that were serious, you know, like what Addy was saying in New York. But a lot of things in New York are they're not as bad as the TV is showing. But my observation with the coverage this morning was when they were interviewing experts in law enforcement and what went wrong and all this, there was a common theme that seemed to be projected in the mainstream media, and that is the police officers or, you know, that whole security staff weren't armed enough, or there weren't enough there. So it worries me that they're moving towards this, well, we're going to have more barriers and more police, more surveillance. And then you start hearing in the news, well, they have facial recognition cameras, you know, that are out there that they can find out who, you know, actually was in the building and all this. So this is the beginnings of my worry. Are you still there? Okay. So this is the beginnings of my worry about this increased encroachment of the police, you know, the militarization, more surveillance technologies. We're already seeing that the people that were protesting are being considered traitors or rioters and stuff like that. And that's not true. You still there?
Yeah, Paul, let me turn on Wi-Fi here just because I think it may have been off because I was next door. So just a second here and we'll get it turned on. I think that'll help a little bit. Just 1 second, Paul. There we go. Okay. We're back.
Okay. So just shortly, you know,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. But just shortly, I think that the mainstream media this morning was pushing that, well, there was rioting and that the police were ill prepared and they need more resources and you know, and more force. And this scares me. This scares me that they're using this as an opportunity to gain more funds for surveilling the citizens and using this as an excuse.
Well, this reminds me so much of Imran Awan, the guy who led the spy ring for the DNC on Capitol Hill for 12 years. After they sent hundreds of terabytes to Pakistan, most probably for a bioweapons program, including coronavirus and anthrax. After that, you know what we need to do? We need to spend more money to improve security procedures. We don't need to indict anybody for selling national secrets to China and who God knows who else. We need more money. And this is the Nancy Pelosi way. We make egregious mistakes. Literally, you see these videos. First of all, there's two worlds going on. The bizarro world that happened inside, which was all staged, ridiculous photo ops with guys with, you know, buffalo heads on their head.
And we're seeing, you know, evidence now of a lot of these guys that were in the Capitol building being spotted, or people have linked them up to spottings at previous actually BLM events. I'm thinking of two guys in particular. One was a black guy and one was a white guy who had, I think it was like a Trump hat on. And the other guy, he dressed a little bit more neutrally. but people are matching them up to previous, I guess, appearances at BLM protests and leftist protests.
These are just citizen journalists doing the matching up.
Yeah, just random people that I saw. It's making the rounds on Twitter. Two that I can think of right now. And people are also talking about, similar to what George was saying, this guy with the horns as well, who I guess played a key role as a provocateur.
Where he blew his horn and everyone rushed the door?
They were blowing horns. They were actually doing that outside.
Yeah,
on
shofars. They were blowing shofars. I thought it was time to go to synagogue. I really did. And they had a Walls of Jericho march. I'm not kidding you. And everyone people there, most of them, there were a lot of young people too, but there were a lot of people that were my age and older, 60 and older.
And the key important demographic of middle-aged white women who play a big role in the political process
were there. And so the idea that this was somehow violent is laughable to me. And the fact that, I think what's going to happen, I was on with Dr. Hamamoto tonight with John O'Loughlin McDuff, and we're going to be able to pick this thing apart. This is going to be like the lone gunman theory and the magic bullet theory, but it's not going to take 50 years to see that Oswald's a CIA agent, the McCone memo. It's going to take maybe a couple of days. I've had access to facial recognition technology to try to get to the bottom of the Iran nuclear deal and look at the people around George Papadopoulos when he was translating for the Iran nuclear deal to see if there's a carryover from the people that did the diversion of funds for the Iraq reconstruction, right? So we're using FR for getting to the bottom of criminal conspiracies, but they're using FR right now to arrest people in absentia after the fact. So this is groundbreaking. This will be the first time that, we saw you, we think that you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. We're going to arrest you in absentia for trespass when you were let in. Literally, we have guards, one guard at the door. There's these videos. I'm not kidding. One guard in the video.
I've seen them. They stepped away and they almost let everyone just walk through.
Yeah, one baton. And the first guy in line is a guy with a Q, huge Q on. It's just, you want to just start blurting out laughing. And he's like running to each landing of the stairs, leading this group in, and then one gun, there's one gun. Talk about a lone gunman theory for one shot that killed this one girl. And there's no other police there. They're the barbarians at the gate. There's only one gun, one cop, and you can't see his face. Just a whole bunch of things that just are bizarro world that they're trying to, it's a bad script that Adam Schiff should have left in the drawer, but he's trying to sell it.
I was listening to Hamamoto, Professor Hamamoto, before he went on with George and John, and he was saying that it seemed like a ritual killing to him, like a ritualized sacrifice. And I guess he tied in the ellipse imagery in as well. And I also wanted to give a shout out for the pre-science for Dr. Hamamoto, because he did an interview like 3 years ago. He was with like a family health advocacy group. I can't remember the exact name, but 3 years ago, he's talking about Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline and how the empire is now using vaccines as the best way to oppress people genetically because it's so hand in glove. It's so insidious, and you can actually market it as a net gain. He made the point. So he was on the ball 3 years ago on this. So
it's the perfect, 2-for-1. They get an annuity because you need it, every year. And if they want to, mess up your biology, they can do it.
And you get the R&D dollars, the warp speed R&D dollars. And we've had people doing videos about us. We hear more smear pieces are coming from the Wellcome Trust. We've gone out at the Wellcome Trust and said, hey, you guys have done chemical weapons with the Duisburg Foundation, the Bayer Foundation. You started World War I. These are the people that started World War I just so they could test chemical weapons. That's what we're talking about here. That's what we're dealing with. They go all the way back to the Wellcome Trust using chemical weapons for the first time in Africa and in South Africa against women and children. Okay. So this group, has maintained this 100-year history, this Wellcome Trust and Bayer in Germany and Holland in developing chemical and biological weapons because they wanted to protect those at that time, gold interests, and then later uranium in the dark continent of Africa. This is Cecil Rhodes. And we're seeing the same people do these election flips. Dominion Energy, Warren Buffett, that the whole crew. This is the old Mark Rich network. So I just laugh, when I see the picture of this Baphomet guy and the 3 or 4 other stooges that they got to pose, and they're posing with the Capitol Police. Now this is just ridiculous. It literally, you couldn't dream up a Marx Brothers episode, but yet Adam Schiff thinks it's ready for prime time. I just think it's going to be laughable in about 3 days when people start looking at the film.
And let's not forget the protests and riots that went on last year, where we saw pretty much no instances that I could see of such blatant kind of show of force insofar as just being so quick on the trigger. There was, instances of police brutality, but it just seems so contrived and so ready-made, especially when you look at the deployment of the National Guard in previous protests last year, where they felt the need to protect the Capitol building. But now when it's a Trump rally, and more particularly in more specific context, a Trump rally for election, it's really an election rally, an election fraud rally, and really saying we are fed up with this, and we're showing our displeasure in how things are going. And that's when they show their trigger skills, their marksmanship skills. It's quite impressive, the power of the media, Paul. I've really come to appreciate and understand more fully just how strong it is in all of our lives.
What's unique about this broadcast, like a lot of our broadcasts, but this one in particular, I think it's special because if you look at just our age spectrum, Addy is younger, from a different generation. I'm Gen X. You're the statesman, the old.
You can say the M word, Paul. You can say it.
Mature.
Mature one. But the point is that there's this continuum of age here that's on this broadcast. So we have different experience. But I think, Addy, you would agree with this, and George definitely. There are points in your life where you go, that's a turning point. That's a turning point for the nation. Now, George, because he's lived longer, has seen more of these turning points. I've seen a few in my life that I would say definitely a turning point for the country or the world. Like 9/11. This gives me that feeling that what happened is a turning point of what will be happening in the country. What that means, I don't really know. But I think that a big component of this turning point is that the government is going to be on the fast track with tyrannical provisions in law, and how the citizens react to that is unknown. Will they capitulate, or will there actually be more force? I don't know. But this is like that, moment in time. It's like this is an inflection point. I think another one was it was before I was born, the Berkeley shooting. I mean, during the Vietnam era, and George would know that more, or the JFK assassination. But this moment in history of storming the gates, the barbarians at the gate and storming the gates, I think is probably a metaphor for things to come. And there's nuances. Parts of it are contrived, parts of it are not. Parts of it are peaceful, parts of it are not. That whole mosaic, that whole kaleidoscope of activity, I think is a trailer for things to come. Now, hopefully, we get through this peacefully. But there was an interview, and I think Addy and I, were talking about it earlier. There was an interview on, I think it's Life Life News, and an individual, it was one of the individuals that stormed the Capitol. They were interviewing later in the night, and he basically said why he did it. You know, it was like, well, the people were, the doors were open, people were moving in, and he just reacted and wanted to be there. And so he was able to get into the main chamber. He's a little bit more on the Christian side of things. So he said the group that was there, that he was with, there was someone with a bullhorn, and they said a religious, a Catholic prayer, they didn't vandalize the place or anything. They viewed it as that's something that was special, that area. But when he was being interviewed, and he said, what were we supposed to do? I mean, you have a government that's not really looking into the voter fraud. We have a government that's taking more and more away from the citizens, in terms of civil liberties. What are you supposed to do? I mean, and he has a perfect point. It's the people's house. That's our house, not Nancy Pelosi's house, right? And but yet what is happening is you have representatives that are looking down on the people and not looking to represent the people. And I'll tell you what he was saying, I could understand. I could fully appreciate what he was saying. It's just like, what are you supposed to do when the government doesn't listen to you? I mean, I've called Schumer multiple times, and it's been recorded, and it's, I get the runaround. I get the runaround with the, the phone system. No, so they don't pick up on the first ring, and then I have to, call through a different, different division within the government, and then eventually I get through. But and I've written, nothing happens. This is why people are upset. They've done the same thing. They've called, they've written, and nothing happens. They don't respond. They don't care. And when they don't care and don't respond, then you're going to have this. So this is the reason why I think mainstream media isn't fully looking at the true picture. You have a big section of the country, maybe 50%, that is saying, hey, we're not being represented and you're not listening to us. Instead, mainstream media is rebel rouser, rioters, traitors. And it's like, no, the real problem is that the representation isn't, the representatives are not listening to the citizens. And it was meant to happen because of this. When you don't listen to the citizens, this is what happens. When you overtax them, this is what happens. When you take away their civil liberties, this is what happens. This is not the fault of the citizen. I'm talking about this from a philosophical perspective. Right. There's nuances within this whole problem. But from a philosophical perspective, the government caused this problem, not the citizens causing the problem.
Right. Well, I think they wanted to establish a situation where facial recognition could be used to say we can dossier this person. Not that they weren't doing the dossiers already. Like you say, Paul, though, you start out covert and then you come in later with some overt act, some false flag, and that codifies it, that memorializes it into law, like 9/11 and then the Patriot Act. And you called this one, for, like a slow train from Mississippi 6 months ago, or I think it was a year ago now almost, when you said the Bio-Patriot Act is coming in. And you're going to have something very close to the Bio-Patriot Act coming in, which is, hey, these people can't be trusted to be in crowds. They could be carrying some kind of contagion, blah, blah, blah. We can't have Congress open anymore to citizens coming to Capitol Hill by appointment only. You have to go down a long corridor. You have to go through several strip searches. That's what's coming. And what happens in Capitol Hill is always a bellwether for what happens at the state capitals and what happens in the state courthouses and what happens at airports and what happens, on and on at all the things. And this is really, they needed a false flag to kick this off because everyone was saying, it just seems like everybody's just kind of peaceably testifying and all this Antifa type activity and Proud Boys. Keep hearing these Proud Boys mentioned. Peter Duke went to Florida and filmed the guy, or at least the co-founder, and he's half Cuban and half black. And I didn't see any Proud Boys there. I didn't see any Proud.
Oh, I was one of a very small few that was part of, I guess, like the younger contingency. It was mostly like 40 to 60, 40 to 70 range of in terms of the age. You did see a couple young
40 to 70. You're putting me with geriatrics.
Well, I think
40 to 70.
As far as males go, you know, that were kind of amped up. I think Addy's nailed it with like a lot of military types. We interviewed like 4 military guys, and they were like in this 40 to 70 range.
Yeah, we actually when we were eating at we were sitting at a restaurant, we were eating at the bar, and these military guys, ex-military guys, came in and they sat like kind of right next to, like, George's on my right, and they were up here, and they didn't say much for a few minutes, but after a few minutes they were like, oh yeah, we saw you guys up at the Capitol and all that. We were, you know, I guess they'd been following George, or one or two of them been following George for quite some time. So we were talking to them about what's been going on, and that was really cool, just having a bar conversation with people from, I think they were from South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, that area, and just getting their take on everything that's going on. And, you know, George mentioned the fact that it was a white woman, Ashley Babbitt, that died, which I don't know, like, why that seems to me very interesting, because that's like a very big power. Well, I was making the joke with actually some people from Atlanta that we had met who the woman, it was really weird. She like recognized me. And then I was like, do you guys want to go come and meet George and Ann Vandersteel? And they were like, yeah. So they walked with us all the way up from the Ellipse to like the far side of the Capitol building. So that was cool getting to talk to them, talking to them as well. But the dad was joking with me. He was saying, yeah, my wife's demographic runs the world. That kind of like 50-year-old white woman, you know, suburban mom demographic, which I think there's quite a bit of truth to that. So there was a large degree of, you know, people in that demographic there, but it's just surprising they would choose a white woman to ritually kill, if that's indeed what happened, just because that's an easy way to piss people off. But tying it back to the bar conversation, George was saying that, yeah, they killed this woman, and one of the military guys was like, well, even if it was a man or a dog, they shouldn't be killing them, at the Capitol building. It's just, there's no reason to do that.
She was between 2 really heavily armed Capitol Police with long guns, you know, and all geared up with, you know, the riot gear and everything. And so it seemed like she was dog walked to her death. And one thing is true, Paul, is as I was walking around with Addy, I was recognized 10 or 12 times.
It was ridiculous, Paul. Like every 100 yards, somebody would stop us and be like, they'd shove their phone in my face. They like, take a picture of us.
Yeah.
And there was.
Did they ask for your autograph?
No, just pictures mostly. But here's my point, Paul, where you said this was going, which is, if I ever take your picture at an event, you're a journalist, and something happens, now everybody in the crowd is on the watch list. Now I can ban you from social media. Now I got FR technology. I'm going to ban you from YouTube, ban you from all the other platforms, ban you from Twitter. I can go ahead and link your accounts. Not that this didn't already happen. It just was covert. And now we have an overt reason. It's those white supremacists. I'm sitting next to a guy where we did a Spanish interview, and several members of our party were Native American, including Addy. And so somehow they try to twist this thing, but they're going to do what you just said. You were at the Capitol. You're off social media. You can just see Zuckerberg coming down the pike with this.
And I want to mention too that I think people should, have more courage, backed by logical reasoning, because I just don't understand when people are hesitant to show their face and name, or just their face on camera, because you don't have to show your name, but the government can find anything they want about you if they want to. So this public intelligence kind of lens that I view it, I think is the way to go, is just declassify everything type of mode. It's the safest way for everyone, because it nullifies the power of documents that are kept secret because of the scarcity principle. The reason those documents are so valuable is because only a few people have seen them. Whereas if you release it to the public, the knowledge is there and the power is spread out, right? It's decentralized.
The other thing, Paul, that we got out of interviewing, and what we're doing is interviewing people who were actually there, and they're staying with us, and we're getting to know them. We got about 14 different people we're interviewing, Addy and I, and just to get the facts out, just to document it for history. You're big on this, which is document this for history, because it was 99% peaceful outside. We did have the 50, what I call meth heads, because they look like meth heads, that put an orange hat on, did the barricades, told everybody to charge, and marched in with the flags, and then they left. How obvious of a false flag is that?
Yeah.
So
they struck pretty quickly. They were marching off to the left. If you're facing the Capitol building on the south end, and George was ahead of me a bit, and they were marching and yelling F Antifa, almost in rank and file. And they were wearing blaze orange. So it kind of looks like red. There's not a true red in the picture. But if you look closely in pictures, you can see it was actually a deep orange, like a blaze orange. And possibly that you use to identify people, but they stuck out just because of what we mentioned about the demographics. They were mostly younger guys.
Way younger, like 35.
Like military
30,
age
30,
males,
35.
kinda.
Yeah, maybe even less than that, maybe 20, late 20.
Yeah. So maybe
Because
25.
If you want to hide, you don't want to be all the same color. You want to look like you're in a uniform or in.
They wanted to impersonate Trump people in the worst way. They wanted to make it look like, I still can't believe nobody has this orange hat story, because I film it. Addy filmed it. They go right by us. I mean, I just can't believe they don't have the false flag story out there in greater numbers. But I do think you're right, Paul. This Bio-Patriot Act is coming, and maybe this is the facial recognition Patriot Act, where we can go ahead and collect anything and ban you from anywhere. And maybe the shreds of truth that we are getting through the people who are funding our detractors right now, because anytime like 60 Minutes does a hit job on you, which just happened to me, and Addy's noticed it, they don't attack you from the Wellcome Trust or NATO or 60 Minutes or CNN after they did the 2 hit pieces. They pick proxies, little small proxies, right, to do their bidding, right? But you have to always recognize who the black hand is behind all this. They're pissed at you because you said they made chemical weapons for 100 years, and they're trying to do their virus vaccine game again. And we were the ones who pointed it out. We said the Wellcome Trust, and we said the name of who was writing the plan to respond to COVID. And they had done all the Africa virus vaccine games, and they didn't like it. So of course they're going to give money to the ne'er-do-wells to throw mud. That's just the name of the game.
Just pivoting to a different topic, but sort of related. After they did the shutdown at the Capitol, the shootings, they cleared the building, they told everyone to walk away and everything, and it looked like most people were walking away. When you were talking to any individuals, what were their like initial impressions? Like, what just happened? Were they happy? Were they sad? Were they crying? Were they in disbelief? Sure. What was kind of like the psychology that was going on?
We'll take you through it chronologically. So I spoke with a guy on the steps, but before that, and what actually triggered George being like, let's go, was George, somebody, I think we heard it via word of mouth. We were literally about to leave. And then George ended up talking to this guy who had a mask on, who he was outside, like right outside, he said, the Capitol building, but he wasn't in the room where the woman was shot. And he saw, I guess, 3 guys come out, and they were like white and like not really wanting to talk and almost like physically sick because they had just seen somebody get killed. And so, George hauls up to the Capitol steps, and I'm behind him. Stride length, folks, stride length. It's much more important than stride frequency. That's why I learned track and field. So I catch up to George. We're at the Capitol steps by now, and the SWAT team comes up the steps, and I start filming. And then this dude who looked, Latino, maybe Chicano, Mexican American, he was yelling at the SWAT team. And I posted this video on Twitter and Facebook. On Facebook, it got a decent amount of traction. I think it got 7,000 or 8,000 views. But he was saying that he saw it happen, and he saw the blood, and he wasn't sure if she was dead, but it didn't look good. So those are two key interviews we did there. And we ended up linking up on the steps. We kind of lost each other for a bit there, but yeah, thereafter we didn't have any data, and we wanted to get our documents out on the internet after that. So we headed out to the station and made our way out of town. So those are the two big interviews, I think, as far as the shooting event went.
Yeah, and my general feeling was very much like the Rittenhouse thing. I wasn't in Milwaukee when that happened, or Minnesota. I can't remember. Milwaukee, Kenosha. I wasn't in Kenosha when that happened, but the total vacuum, police vacuum, and then you let the play go on, however the play goes on. And they were kind of doing that Chinese dancing game where everybody jumps over everybody. It just seemed very choreographed. I don't know why the Rittenhouse thing seems so choreographed to me. And then all of a sudden the police show up in a massive show of force. It's like, where were you when the guy was running down the street with an AR-15? Isn't that something that would generate a 911 call or two? And then to have him like walk amongst all the MRAPs and all the vehicles, police vehicles, with nobody saying, put the gun down. I think in law enforcement, first thing you do is you say, stop, put the gun down. Nobody said anything. They said, get out of the way. They said, get out of the way to a guy who's shots fired already now, 4 or 5 shots fired already. You can hear the things. You have the people calling the 911 in, and here are the cops. We're supposed to believe this. The cops are going, get out of the way. We're trying to get to the scene of the crime. And they're going slower than the OJ cars. They're going like 3 miles an hour. It's a parade crawl. And we're supposed to believe this. And people bought that Rittenhouse thing.
Yeah, and I think this is like, especially I think conservative leaning people, when it comes to the police, they thought that, they were given orders to back down. Like, no, any other situation, they're gonna shoot them without question. That's what I think. But meanwhile, Absolutely. You got this white woman who's unarmed, and they just execute her. So I think people on both sides need to wake up, and it's kind of a chore sometimes for me to express, the basic concepts. Like, and I don't mean, what I mean by that is it's frustrating when that people get stuck in this left-right paradigm. I find that very frustrating, but that's something I think that's important to reiterate is the blue-red Dem Republic paradigm. It's a false paradigm, regardless of what you're looking at with it. People want to make this point to sound clever. It's like, okay, well, we get it, but you have to evolve your thinking beyond that. Beyond making points about hypocrisy, you have to look at the big picture. So
yeah.
I think it's really the issue for 2021 is that division between the government and the citizens. It's not blue and red or north and south. It's actually the representatives that are in government not representing the people. I see that as the division line. But what is interesting, you brought up O.J. Simpson, all right? In a way, it's very similar. I remember with my brother Dan, the one that died from the heart attack, we were listening to the radio, and we were on lunch. We worked at the same place at the time, and he turned on the radio, and we were listening to the actual verdict for O.J. Simpson. And we were shocked. I mean, the whole country was shocked that he got off. And it's very similar. The country is shocked that our representatives in the Senate were willing to actually look at the evidence. So we have all been OJ'd in a way. The whole country has been OJ'd. We didn't really have a true look at the federal level of the evidence to show the voter fraud and to rectify that. What we'll have is, like you said, George, in our previous recording, we'll have a commission. They'll stamp approval. They'll say they'll make it better some other day, but we lost in a lot of ways. The country has lost, and the question is, what do we do about it? How do we move forward? Any election, is it valid anymore? If you can't sequester the Dominion machines and look at what's really going on, inside, with that code, who knows what election is valid or not.
Yeah, I wanted to express that question earlier, Paul, too, because George was saying you predicted the Patriot Act thing, and now the grounds are set such that President Pelosi can create this fortress, because of all this danger that happened, which is completely manufactured. But the question I was, again, just going back to that frustration, I don't want us to be right about predicting this stuff. I want us to be surprised because we're winning. But that's not the case at all. So it's like, I guess I'm just expressing frustration and putting a question out to the panel of what do we just keep trying to get people face to face, and spreading the word, just keep asking questions. Do we change tactics? Because I think that's an important question to ask. Is
I saw
things aren't working. You got to see if you change tracks.
I saw an old video that I did on March 11th. All right, that's on my big channel. And I talk about the importance of the citizens to get engaged and prevent the Patriot Act. And I said that, and it's like I replayed it and I was watching it. I was like, oh my God, it's almost like listening to a prophet. I'm not saying I'm a prophet. I didn't, I'm sure people are going to misconstrue what I just said. But it's like, it's prophetic on what's going on. And it's almost, sometimes when I wake up, Addy, it's like, was it a dream? Are we back to a pre-COVID, and all this never really happened? Every day I wish that. I wish none of this happened, because my gut feeling is that what's going in the near future, what's coming is scary. It's scary. And, I'll tell you, sometimes I wish, is it that I think that it's happening and it happens? So maybe I shouldn't exist, or maybe I shouldn't think.
Yeah.
We're
on a pre-war
you go through this kind of existential thought, process.
Yeah.
It's like, well, is our minds literally making the events happen? You know what I mean? Collectively, if we're all thinking the same thing, does it happen? I mean, scientifically, that seems like it's an impossibility, but who knows anymore? But I just I'm scared of 2021. I mean, I was worried in 2020. I'm scared in 2021. It's different. It's a different feeling.
But before I pass it off to George, I wanted to say I think you're right. It seems like we're on a pre-war path, and you mentioned the existential thinking or the philosophizing of the situation, and I was talking to somebody earlier about it, and it made me think about it, because it was almost the exact same conversation or idea that I had in Atlanta around the fire with somebody else, and that was, is this just a perpetual, never-ending fight that you just play a part in, and then you die, and then that's it? It seems a bit, it's a little depressing to me if that's the case. I don't know, what do you think, George?
You guys are making, you guys are calling it as it is, and it is. I look at it in those terms. I feel bad for younger people. I don't mind. I've already come to accept this a long time ago after my partner died, that I'm going to die doing this, and that I'm quite happy with that. Paul, I think you're there, but I don't. As you're 25, that's like, what? I don't ever get to play golf, I mean, or play tennis or whatever. I don't ever get to enjoy any of the stuff you guys did, and it is sad, but this life is resembling 1984 and Brave New World a lot more. I mean, it's almost like wouldn't it be great if we had a few corners where we could talk to each other like they did in 1984? Because you can't do that now. So, but here's my word of hope is, I did take something from going around the Capitol. And this one guy, we were going down by Rayburn or one of the Longworth office building, and a lot of people had stopped me and want to take pictures and stuff. But this guy said, "George Webb," and I said, "Yeah, man." He goes, "You're the best. You're the best. Nobody does it like you." And he really meant it. I could see it in his eyes that he didn't want to come over and shake my hand. He wanted to let me know that I was out there and doing it. And that's the one thing I don't think, and this isn't about me. I'm just saying that the citizen journalist is the answer. because until they shut this down, the people will know the truth. It's like when the Soviet Union, and they couldn't get Beatles records into the Soviet Union, and they made them, on all these tapes and stuff, and smuggled all these records in. And that was the hardest thing you could get. Blue Jeans and Beatles records were the two hardest things that, and the people found a way. The people will find a way to get to the Addy ads and the Paul Cottrells. They will. They will. I mean, they can ban and face recognition and all this and kill half of us, but it's like at the end of Grapes of Wrath, they say they kill us off, and there's another whole bunch. They keep on coming. Now, maybe they'll perfect spraying technology to the point where they can kill us en masse like bugs, like Monsanto. But until then, I think citizen journalism is the answer. The pen is mightier than the sword. I know we have this talk a lot, but I believe that. I really do. I believe that a lot of people know you, Paul. When we mention your name, a lot of people know McDuff. A lot of people know Mark Kulak. The word is getting out. And if you can't bet on these guys, you're really in trouble. Jeff Prather is another guy who maybe we're not completely aligned, but he's a guy that went from when you first interviewed him, or who introduced me to Prather first?
I'm going to take full credit for that, guys.
Yeah.
I found I'm going to tell a story quick, just a quick anecdote. It was the first week of July, the week that Ghislaine got arrested. And I was plugging my interview with Laura Goldman, Ghislaine Maxwell's friend, just finding anybody and everybody who was talking about Jeffrey Epstein on YouTube. And I found Major Prather. I think he was a little bit above 1,000 subscribers. So
yeah, and
that was a gold find. And Brad Johnson too, as well. I found that way.
See, I didn't know Prather through you, Addy. I knew him through my show on Michael Deacon. I was on a show with Michael Deacon, and then I asked for I can't remember now.
I introduced him to Farmer Jones. That's right. We did those shows in the White House. You introduced him to. I saw you do it. I saw your interview. And
I met with you, George, before I met with
Prather. Yeah. But the key here is that Prather had under 1,000 or around 1,000 subscribers. His last video he did last night had 101,000 views 24 hours later. So that to me tells me that there is hope. I know
I am a good talent scout, folks.
Yeah, he got Sean Atwood, and then I think Ryan Dawson was already famous when you.
Ryan was already Ryan by the time he talked to me. But I'm grateful for that. Yeah, and shout out to Ryan Dawson, who also did not make it out of the second great YouTube purge. He survived the first one, and that was right before the election there, which many of us predicted. But the second one, Ryan saw a victim as well. Not only his YouTube, but his Twitter too. So.
But Paul, just
I have this big prediction for David Duke. Once he's on my show, I think he's going to be big in Hollywood.
Yeah, you'll go big time. CNN couldn't kill me 3 years ago. CNN didn't kill me last year with the smear. They had to go to 60 Minutes. Why? Because of the older demographic. 60 Minutes has an over 60 type demographic. So if they can't smash a bug like me with they put Donnie O'Sullivan on me full time, right? For 3 years, they couldn't get me. So we have resilience. It's kind of, I can't remember, there's a movie about this where the bugs just get stronger every time you spray them. I think that's us. I think we're the bugs that just get stronger every time they spray us until they kill us. But until then, I'm going to die with a stick in my hand, shooting these videos. I mean, that's going to be how it is.
We're not going to die, hopefully, but
we all will eventually. I want to do it this way rather than, asking somebody for permission to, have dinner with my family. I mean,
that's true. That's true.
I never thought.
I'd rather not get assassinated is my point.
Right.
But
I never thought about making a will until this year, and I was thinking, what if something happened? And there was two ways that I was thinking that would happen, either quote an accident, or just being hurt by SARS-CoV-2. I've always, when I was a kid, I always thought that I would have a pulmonary issue, and die from a pulmonary problem. I don't know why. I always had this nightmare of not being able to breathe. And so I just like, this is the first year that I've actually, thought, is it time to actually make a will? Usually when you're still like in my age, you'd say, hey, you can live forever, right?
Yeah.
And Addy, you can live forever plus, another lifetime.
Well,
But I feel that I feel mortality is my point. Right?
Yeah, I came to a similar kind of shift in consciousness last year too. I think it was the second week of March when I just couldn't push the fear out of attentional, out of my attention span any longer. It was that overwhelming. Similar to, well, anyways, it's just a consciousness shift of a memento mori, where you fully grasp, maybe for the first time, your morality in a very immediate way, right? Whereas before it was a little less acute, and that really, I think, changes you permanently.
And I have the solution for you, where you don't have to worry about a will anymore. Take all your money, take a couple, 300, 400,000, and put it all into this. And so at the end of 4 years, you have no money, and then you don't have to worry about a will. And if they kill you, nobody has to worry about fighting over your will. So that's where I am, and I love it. So it is the answer to the test. It really is, because if people see you in there giving every last red cent you have of your personal savings, they're more apt to support you, and they're more apt to believe your message. If you're getting sponsored by the Wellcome Trust, for crying out loud, and they're coming up with these shill doctors to say that, well, yeah, we've done poisons for 100 years. We love poisons, but here's why you should not like Dr. Paul Cottrell. I don't want to listen to poison merchants tell me who I should like and who I shouldn't like. Oh, let's see, you killed 20 million in World War I. That we were just getting started. World War II, did you see us in World War II? Hey, how about this latest one, this Corona? We got 5 rounds of that. That's the people we're dealing with. So anyway, end of speech. We're getting to the end of our nickel here, Paul, on our meter.
Yeah, I just wanted to express too my final thought, I guess, for our chat this evening. You mentioned World War II, George, and it's really the people connections that are human resources that is the most important thing. If you know somebody who can sneak you across the Belgian border, that could save you and your whole family's life. And all it takes is one Judas, and all of you are going to the oven. So I don't mean that to invoke fear, but just to appreciate people who are loyal to you.
Did you meet a Judas? Sorry, you know what I'm talking about. Hey, we all can help people. It's funny because the most unsuspecting people that you go out of your way to help, you figure, I'm going to help the person who's in the most trouble. And you figure that's the last person. That person will always, want to help me in return. If they ever have a chance to say anything nice, those are the people the deep state, the Wellcome Trust, goes after, because they can say they're fighting. It's a fight between you and that other person, right? The people who has a little bit of familiarity, even if you haven't met, but you did 1 or 2 podcasts, they can say, hey, we can play on that. We can make it look like you guys were friends and now you're fighting. So people might believe what they say.
I say this too because hopefully unnecessarily, but nonetheless preemptively, that if things do get worse and worse and worse and continue to tread south, the importance of alliances and the question of, can I trust this person, becomes more and more imperative. This YouTube drama BS, it's really high school girl stuff. It's really not a big deal. But if we're getting to a hot wartime scenario, because this is an information wartime that we're in, that sort of mistake or malfeasance, could potentially cost lives, including yours or mine. So it's good to, I think, practice that type of thinking and just be thinking ahead that way.
Yep.
I totally agree. Absolutely agree. Well, thank you for being on the channel. I'll be premiering this, right when it's processed, so probably at around 11:15 or so. And I appreciate your guys' work. And I was praying for you guys to make sure that you came home safe, and you are safe and sound. And thank you for fighting the good battle.
All right, Paul. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Okay. Talk to you
Stay frosty.